This is in response to a Lions-Packers video, I believe, that we had. He said, yeah, seriously, the Lions are terrible against the pass the last 3 years, so they sign a cornerback 2 from Tampa. Then they cut Sutton, and they will have a quarterback disadvantage with Goff across the entire division. So how the hell do you think they will win the NFC North next year? Is it just not being used to seeing winning football and not knowing what is transferable year to year? Jesse, my God, man, come on, chill out here. When you say seriously, I say, yeah, let's be serious. Detroit is a really good football team, top to bottom. You want to talk about their offense? Elite offensive line, elite weapons, like elite running backs, elite tight end, elite receiver, the highest paid in the league right now in Amon-Ra. And Goff
very good quarterback.
And the thing is with Goff, I know people like to get on him. Jared Goff was really good last year, consistently good the entire season. And he's actually been really good for a year and a half now, going back to Detroit's run to end the 2022 season. So at some point, we have to look at Jared Goff. You might not have to say he's a top 10 quarterback in football, but you have to look at him and say, this guy's been really consistent and consistently good for a year and a half now. That's not a coincidence. He's just playing good football right now. And if that defense, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan in the world of Carlton Davis or anything like that, but they're shoring up the D-line. I think they're trying to improve the secondary. They might do it again later tonight in the draft. Look, as I'm assuming Jesse's a Packer fan, ignore Detroit at your own risk. Like they were up 17 in the NFC Championship game. Again, our friend Tom Monroe always gets shouted out. Like these Lions are really good, and I see no reason why they're not a top 3 contender in the NFC next season. So.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Lions had what? They had the second worst pass defense in the entire NFL last year. You could argue it was the worst pass defense in the NFL last year across the whole regular season. And they had the 3rd best offense and did really good. What's stickier, offense or defense? We know the answer to that. It's offense. Mm-hmm. Did they lose their offensive coordinator? No. Did they lose any important pieces on offense? No. They lose their head coach? No. Like, they haven't lost anything. So I fully expect this Lions team is going to be good. Now, you're right, they haven't improved the pass defense as much as you'd like to see. You hope that they regress a little bit towards the mean, but even if they don't, they were able to win last year despite having a team that had this hole on it. So I'm not convinced that suddenly this guy's going to fall in Detroit just because their weakness from last year continues to be a weakness.
And you wanted to bring up too, the big moves they made today, signing Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4 years, $120 million deal. 77, I believe, is guaranteed of that. And then Penei Sewell gets a 4-year, $112 million deal on top of the 5th year of his rookie deal now. Both those guys, I believe, are the highest paid at their position in football right now. Ziggy, you said right before we got on, and we said save it for the show, but do you like this or not? I thought you always liked getting ahead of the curve.
I like the fact that they're signing these guys early and getting ahead of the curve. That much is good. The thing I wonder is whether Amon-Ra St. Brown is the best use of their resources. Now, let me be clear. Amon-Ra St. Brown is an excellent NFL player. He is one of the better receivers in the league. But he plays slot. And historically, slot production is among the easiest offensive productions to replace. Now, you can say, look, Amon-Ra is special in the slot, and he is. But we're talking about a guy with a career average depth of target of under 8 yards. Now, I think he's a good value for somebody. But you look at the Lions, right? They're going to have to pay their tight ends big money. They're going to have to pay Jared Goff big money. They're paying their offensive line big money. Like, at a certain point, something has to give. And if Jared Goff signs the kind of deal I think he's going to sign, $45, $50 million a year, you've got Frank Ragnow, you got Taylor Decker, right? You've got a lot of expensive offensive linemen, and you're adding with Sewell. Eventually, you're going to need to spend on defense. Eventually, you're going to need to spend on some of these guys on offense. I'm just not sure that the fit makes sense for this team. On the other hand, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a great player. But it seems to me like that's the kind of thing you could hope to replace in the draft or with cheaper free agents. So as much as I like they're getting out and signing him early, and they're signing him this before Justin Jefferson, before Jamar Chase. I get those guys play slightly different positions, but before the big receiver contracts come in, I just wonder whether the Lions should be the team doing this rather than trading him for a bunch of capital and drafting some other cheaper receivers.
I get where you're coming from. I do think that Amon-Ra, I'm fine with this move from Detroit. Young dude who's only getting better, it seems, every single year. What do you have, 1,500 yards last year? this scares me a lot for the Vikings with Jefferson.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, look, here's what they're choosing to do, right? What they're choosing to say is we can replace a guy like Taylor Decker easier than we can replace a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Because you
which
can't,
is
after this, go out and sign a big money left tackle. Historically, that's not the case, but that's what they believe they can do. It'll be interesting to see what they're able to.
yeah, and once they get Goff settled down too, at least they'll have the foundation of that offense for the next 4 or 5 years here, with Sewell and everyone there. But yeah, it's it's a risky move. Anytime you hand out a contract like that, it's risky. But this receiver market's getting crazy. You mentioned before we started the show, who could someone wind up pushing 40 million in a couple of years? Probably. I mean, as the salary cap goes up, I'm not happy about what's going on with the receiver market for where the Vikings stand. Zach Bowner 3415 says, starting off, and he asked 2 questions, but Zach, the second half of your question got cut off, so sorry, we can't see it. He says, starting off with a question for Jack. Do you think the Steelers' record with/without TJ Watt in seasons he misses time is a correlation or causation? I mean, man, I wish Jack were here to answer this question. So I'll take it for Jack. I think it's causation. When you look at the record, it is 69-33 with TJ Watt, 1-10 without him. And it's not like every single one of these games is against a juggernaut offense either. There's games against the Jets. There's games against the Patriots without Tom Brady, against the Bears, against the Browns. Like, without TJ Watt, they allowed 22.2 points per game. With him, 16.6. Like, there's a very clear drop off in the Steelers defense with and without this one dude. We've compared him to Patrick Mahomes, being the Patrick Mahomes of the Steelers team, which, again, it sounds ridiculous. We know it's a little bit of a hyperbole, but really the impact is striking. So I would say it's a causation.
I mean, some of it is correlation. Like, TJ Watt is not legitimately mattering for 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah. I mean,
but the dude is very, very good. He is one of those defensive players who is a real difference maker. I mean, I think he's responsible. Probably, I'd like to see the math, but you could probably count 2 or 3 wins a year from him, which is incredible, right? When we're talking 2 wins, we mean the difference between 11-6 and 9-8.
Yeah, that's playoff spots. That's playoff spots right there.
He's that good.
Coltrane says, how much of this? I didn't understand this. How much of a QB killer is Kevin O'Connell? I think he's just trolling. You're just trolling, Cole. How much of a QB killer? Yeah, enough of that. Would you guys travel to Brazil for a game if the Vikings played down there? No.
I'd love to see Andre.
I'd love to go to Brazil, but I want to go to Minnesota. If I lived in Minnesota, I'm sure I would say yes to this. But being a Northeast Jersey guy, I want to. If I'm going to a Viking game, I want to go to Minnesota. I'm sure it'll be a great time. If I were a Packer fan living in Wisconsin, I could afford it. Yeah, go down, watch them play the Eagles. That'll be fun.
I think we got time for 2 more questions.
There's a couple questions left here. Cole says, team chemistry is a huge deal. How much do you weigh a player, non-QB's, ability to mesh with the current team chemistry? And should teams weigh it more heavily than they do? Chemistry is important, but I'm someone who always tends to look at the situation and say, a certain degree of talent, I'm willing to deal with the bullshit that comes with it. Now, like younger Antonio Brown, all of his antics, fine by me. We'll figure out a way to handle it. But older Antonio Brown, when he wasn't as productive, that is where I think it could start to become a disruption for a team. You don't want to involve that. But when you have a superstar, you're willing to deal with some of the diva traits, even if it does disrupt team chemistry a little bit. That's at least my view. That's try and straighten them out and have that production, because winning cures all.
Yeah, as you say, it's they're very rare is the player of the character flaw so bad that when you start winning games, it doesn't work. Now, Antonio Brown crossed that line, but in general, as you say, winning cures all ills. The player would have to be incredibly toxic for me to not want him on my team.